Hello. So this is video number 12, I believe. And I today was thinking a lot about the word love. And I was thinking about how when I was younger, the word love wasn't used a lot in my family. It wasn't a word that was thrown around very much. And so growing up into my teenage high school years and starting to date, I didn't use that word. It was something that I was sort of reserved, right? Like I kind of held it sacred um, to people that I felt like the utmost and ultimate connection to. Which, if I think about it now and process it externally, my family could have been one of the group of one of those groups of people, but we didn't use the word love very much in our family either. So I grew up in a abusive, alcoholic environment, and there's definitely more hate thrown around than love. And even, I would say even with the closest relationship in my household, which would have been with my mom, I don't think we used that word very much. I mean, it was used casually, but it wasn't intentionally like looking into the eyes, like I love you. At least as often as I can remember. And so, then that seeped into my relationships as I grew older, and I reserved the word. I would never use it. I would be definitely the last one in a relationship to use it. And in the past few years, going through these workshops that I've been doing, and kind of experiencing love on a different level, like realizing that love can exist in all aspects of my life without there needing to be a specific type of attachment that I think I always understood when I was younger. And so being able to look at a person and see how I can love them regardless of who they are, regardless of if I just met them. And the especially hard one for me, as I talked about in my last video, would be people that have dynamically different views than I do, whether that's politically, etc. And so, it's like, just like I think I stated this in my last video or two, but talking about how if someone's holding a gun in my head, how do you find love and compassion in your heart for someone like that? I mean, in this political day and age, you could easily say, how do I find love and compassion for myself? If you're if you happen to identify with being liberal, then maybe you find it hard to identify with Trump. And so so how do we do that? How do we find love in ourselves to be able to identify and connect with the part of humanity that connects all of us? It's easy to sit back and just state, well, they're too different, or they're, hateful. But as I learned recently from hanging out with someone who I actually dated about 10 years ago, he reached out to me, and our last conversation ended sordidly. He adamantly stated that being gay was a choice, and he was so strong and so committed to his belief that at the end of that conversation, I told him that was a deal breaker for me. And um, that I just couldn't be with someone who saw being gay as being a choice, because I was so engulfed in being an advocate for college students, especially because I worked in higher ed at the time. So college students specifically, but towards working towards gay rights and equality and all these things, and he just said, "Well, if you're gonna say something that would have changed my mind, you would have said it already." And that was like a slap across the face. And for the next 10 years, I actually have recounted this story. And I've told people about it. And I've been ashamed of the fact that I couldn't. In that moment, I got emotional. I got triggered. And I wasn't able to use my words in the way that I wanted to use them with this person who I saw as, this person who was very logical and logically minded, and wasn't able to, my emotions in that instance weren't gonna sway him to think differently about the topic. And so I told him that that was a deal breaker for me, and I told him that I can't be with someone who thinks that being gay is a choice. And he said, "Well, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and if I come back and you're still here, we'll know that it's really not a deal breaker for you." And that was like the icing on the cake for me. That was like an extra slap across the face. I couldn't even believe he said that to me. And I sat there in shock. This was about 10 years ago. I sat there in shock, and I came out of my shock and walked out, because it was very true to my values. And I felt very committed to that piece. And that was the last time we ever talked. And just about 2 months ago, he reached out to me, and he asked if we could hang out, and I said okay. I was wondering what his motives were, and in talking with him, we had idle chit chat for a while, and eventually he said, "I don't know if you remember that conversation that we had." And I said, "Oh, I remember it. I've recounted it many times since then." And he said, "Me too." And he said it was actually a pivotal moment in my life. And I said, "How so?" as I watched the tears stream down from his eyes. And I realized that if I can find love and compassion for anyone, because you never know where they're going to end up. We never know where I'm going to end up. Who knows where my views will be in 10 years. And for him, he shared with me that things have changed a lot for him over the years, and he thinks about our conversation a lot, and it was a turning point in his life. And whereas I've spent the last 10 years recounting that same conversation, wishing that I could have been a better argumentative person, been a better, how do you say, like, basically just somebody who could argue my point better. But I'm not like that. I'm not good with facts. I'm not good with details. I don't have that kind of memory. I have an emotional memory, and that's all I could convey to him, was that this is important, and that I believed in equal rights for all humans, regardless of how they think or believe. And that statement right alone that I just said has warrant for a whole nother 15 videos, so we can talk about those later. But I want to keep this video under 10 minutes, as I always do, and or try to, and just come back to that word about love, and realizing that, nowadays I use it much more freely, because I do love so many people that I meet. I could know them for 1 minute, or I could know them for years, or I could come to re-know them. And I do believe in Desmond Tutu's teachings about Ubuntu. We are who we are because of other people, and If we can't love ourselves and love one another, our world will never shift, and our planet will never change, and we will never grow as a species. So I leave you with that, and I just challenge you to love more, and love yourself if that's where you're at, if that's the only thing you can do. And I think for a lot of people, that's actually harder. Sometimes it's easier to love other people than ourselves, and it starts with us. I feel like it starts with us. If we can't love ourselves, then we can't love others. We have to love ourselves first. We're the only ones we're going to be with for the rest of our lives, so we might as well start there. Okay, happy video 11, and thanks for watching.